The silence in the Martelli mansion was deafening. 8-year-old Adrian sat at the grand piano in the Chicago penthouse, his small fingers hovering over the keys, but no sound emerged, just like no words had passed his lips for 6 months. Antonio, Tony Marcelli, the most feared don in Chicago, stood in the doorway watching his son's silent world, his heart breaking behind his cold exterior. The white dress shirt hung open at the collar, 4 buttons undone, revealing the muscular chest that had intimidated countless enemies. His platinum Rolex caught the afternoon light as he clenched his fists, the elegant tattoo on his neck, a small crown, visible as he tilted his head in frustration. Then she walked in. Gabi Castillo moved quietly through the room, her cleaning supplies in hand, humming a soft Mexican lullaby under her breath. Adrian's head turned sharply toward the sound, the first time he'd reacted to anything in months. Tony's dark eyes fixed on the young woman who had just accomplished what dozens of therapists couldn't. Something was about to change in the Marcelli household forever. Welcome to Passion and Power. You're about to witness an incredible story of healing, love and second chances in the dangerous world of Chicago's Mafia. Comment below where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heart-stopping romance stories. Your support means everything to us. The south side of Chicago was a world away from the gleaming towers of the magnificent Mile, and Gabriela Castillo knew the difference intimately. Every morning at 5 a.m., she kissed her 7-year-old son Carlos goodbye and caught 3 buses to reach the wealthy neighborhoods where she cleaned houses for families who would never know her name. "Mommy, when will you be home?" Carlos asked that Tuesday morning, his small hand tugging at her worn jacket. His breathing was slightly labored. The Chicago winter always made his asthma worse, and they couldn't afford the better medications. "Before dinner, mijo," Gabi promised, kneeling to kiss his forehead. "Abuela will pick you up from school, okay?" The boy nodded, but she saw the worry in his dark eyes. At 7, Carlos already understood too much about their struggles. Gabi worked 3 jobs, cleaning houses during the day, stocking shelves at night, and weekend shifts at a local diner, but it was never enough. The medical bills kept piling up, and their tiny apartment in Pilsen felt smaller every day. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dolores, her supervisor at Elite Cleaning Services. "Emergency assignment, Marcelli residence, Lincoln Park, $500 for today only." "Can you take it?" Gabi's heart raced. $500 was more than she made in a week. She quickly typed back, "On my way." An hour later, she stood before a mansion that looked like something from a movie. The limestone facade rose 4 stories, with perfectly manicured gardens despite the late autumn chill. Security cameras tracked her movement as she approached the front door, and she noticed the subtle signs of wealth everywhere, from the Italian marble steps to the bulletproof windows that gleamed like mirrors. A man in an expensive suit opened the door before she could knock. "You the cleaning lady?" "Yes, sir. Gabriela Castillo from Elite Services." Joey, Tony's driver and occasional security, looked her up and down with professional assessment. Young, pretty, but tired. The kind of tired that came from working too hard for too little. "Boss is in his office, don't disturb him. Kids in the music room, don't try to talk to him. He don't talk back." Gabi nodded, following Joey through hallways lined with original artwork and Persian rugs that probably cost more than her annual rent. The silence in the house was oppressive, broken only by the soft tick of an antique grandfather clock. "One more thing." Joey stopped at the base of a curved staircase. "If the boss asks you anything, answer direct. No small talk. He ain't the chatty type." As Joey disappeared, Gabi began her work in the main living area. The house was immaculate already. Clearly, this wasn't about cleanliness. Rich people, she'd learned, sometimes hired help just to have someone around to fill the emptiness that money couldn't touch. She was dusting a bookshelf when she heard it, or rather, didn't hear it. Piano keys being pressed with no sound. Following the noise, she found herself in a sun-filled room where a small boy sat at a grand piano, his fingers moving over the keys in perfect form, but with the volume turned completely down. Adrian Marcelli was beautiful in the way that mixed heritage often created. Olive skin, dark hair that curled slightly at the ends, and his father's intense brown eyes. But those eyes held a sadness that no 8-year-old should carry. Gabi's heart clenched. She recognized that look. She'd seen it in Carlos's eyes during their hardest moments. Without thinking, she began humming softly while she cleaned, a Mexican lullaby her grandmother had sung to her. Duérmete mi niño, duérmete mi amor, duérmete pedazo de mi corazón. Adrian's hands stilled on the keys. Slowly, he turned to look at her, his eyes wide with something that might have been hope. "That's a pretty song you're playing," Gabi said gently, continuing to dust nearby. "Even without sound, I can see the music in your hands." The boy's lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, he turned back to the piano and began playing again, this time with the volume up. The melody that filled the room was hauntingly beautiful, a piece far too advanced for most children his age. "Chopin," came a deep voice from the doorway. Gabi spun around to find a man who commanded attention without trying. Antonio Marcelli was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made the air itself seem to shift. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his white dress shirt open at the collar, revealing a muscular chest and a small, elegant tattoo on the side of his neck. A crown, she realized. A platinum Rolex glinted on his wrist as he crossed his arms. "Nocturne in E-flat major," he continued, his voice carrying a slight Italian accent that spoke of family heritage rather than recent immigration. "He's been playing it for months. It was his mother's favorite." The past tense wasn't lost on Gabi. He's very talented. He used to be more than talented. He used to talk, laugh, ask a million questions. Tony's jaw tightened. That was before she left. Adrian's playing faltered at his father's words, then stopped entirely. The silence returned, heavier than before. "I'm sorry," Gabi whispered. Tony studied her with those dark eyes that seemed to see everything. "You made him play with sound, that's the first time in weeks." "Music should be heard," she said simply. "It's meant to be shared." Something flickered across Tony's face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. "What's your name?" "Gabriela Castillo, sir, but everyone calls me Gabi." "Gabi." He tested the name, and somehow it sounded different in his voice, warmer. "How long have you been cleaning houses?" 3 years since my son was born." She hadn't meant to mention Carlos, but something about this man's directness made her speak honestly. "You have a son?" "Yes, sir. Carlos. He's 7. Tony's expression shifted, becoming almost protective. "Where's his father?" "Gone," she said simply. "It's just us." Adrian had been listening to every word, his small hands resting on the piano keys. Suddenly, he pressed a single note, middle C, and held it, the sound echoing through the room like a question. Tony's breath caught. "Adrian?" The boy looked at his father, then at Gabi, then pressed the note again. This time, he whispered something so soft it was barely audible. "What did he say?" Tony demanded, moving closer. Gabi's eyes filled with tears. "He said, 'Pretty lady sings.'" For a moment, the powerful Don who controlled half of Chicago's underworld looked like nothing more than a father, desperate for his child's voice. His hands shook slightly as he knelt beside Adrian's piano bench. "That's right, son. The pretty lady sings." But Adrian had already retreated back into his silence, leaving both adults staring at the piano keys as if they held the secret to bringing him back to the world. The next morning, Gabi's phone rang at 6 a.m. She was already awake, making Carlos breakfast in their tiny kitchen while he used his inhaler, the cheap one that barely helped but was all they could afford. "Gabi?" Dolores's voice was excited. "The Marcelli family wants you back. Permanent position, daily cleaning, but really they want you to help with the kid." Gabi's hand stilled on Carlos's lunchbox. "Permanent. 1,500 a week, plus benefits, health insurance included." The world seemed to tilt. Health insurance meant Carlos could get the medication he needed, the specialist appointments they'd been putting off. What's the catch? No catch. Rich guy wants his kid to talk again, and apparently you're some kind of miracle worker. 2 hours later, Gabi stood in Tony's office, a room that screamed power and danger. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound books, and behind his massive desk, a painting that she was pretty sure was a real Monet. Tony sat reviewing documents, his white shirt again open at the collar, the platinum Rolex catching the morning light. "Sit," he said without looking up. The leather chair was probably worth more than her monthly rent. "Mr. Marcelli, I should explain. I'm not a therapist or a nanny. You're the woman who made my son speak for the first time in 6 months." His dark eyes finally met hers. "That makes you exactly what I need." "I don't understand what you want from me." Tony leaned back, studying her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Adrian has seen 12 therapists, 3 psychiatrists, and 2 specialists from Johns Hopkins. None of them could get him to say a single word. You walked into his life for one day and he spoke. It was a miracle." His voice was firm. "His mother left him, Gabi. Packed her bags while he was at school and disappeared with her lover. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone." The pain in his voice was carefully controlled, but she heard it anyway. "I'm sorry. I don't want your pity. I want your help." He pulled out a contract. 1,500 a week, full health benefits, flexible schedule so you can care for your own son. In exchange, you spend time with Adrian. Clean the house if you want, but your real job is helping him find his voice again. Gabi stared at the contract, her mind racing. "Why me?" "Because you understand." Tony stood, moving to the window that overlooked Lincoln Park. "You're a single parent fighting for your child. You know what it means to protect someone smaller than yourself." "Mr. Marcelli." "Tony," he corrected. "If you're going to be part of this household, use my name." The word household sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. "Tony, I need to be honest. My son has asthma. Bad asthma. Sometimes I have to leave work for emergencies. Then bring him here." She blinked. "What? After school, weekends, whenever you need to. This house has 8 bedrooms and a library better than most schools. Adrian could use a friend." The offer was too good to be true, which in Gabi's experience meant it probably was. "What aren't you telling me?" Tony turned back to her, and for a moment, his carefully controlled mask slipped. She saw exhaustion, worry, and something that looked like desperation. "My business involves certain risks. People who work for me, people who matter to me, they become targets. I need you to understand that." "What kind of business?" "The kind where I can offer you more money than you've ever seen, but I can't promise it's safe." Gabi thought about Carlos's labored breathing that morning, about the medical bills stacked on her kitchen table, about the future she wanted to give her son. How dangerous. "I'll protect you," Tony said simply. "Both of you. That's a promise." Something in his voice made her believe him. "Okay. Okay? I'll take the job." Relief flooded his features. "Good. Start today. Adrian's in the music room." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Gabi, thank you." She found Adrian exactly where she'd left him the day before, playing silent piano. This time she sat down beside him on the bench. "Want to hear something my son taught me?" she asked softly. Adrian's hands paused on the keys. "He told me that music is like feelings. Sometimes you have to play it loud so everyone knows how you feel. Sometimes you play it soft so only special people can hear." She gently reached over and turned up the volume. "But you should never play it silent because then the feelings get trapped inside." Adrian looked at her with those serious brown eyes, then slowly began to play. The melody was different this time, lighter, more hopeful. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "Mama used to sing," Adrian said suddenly, his voice barely audible. Gabi's heart jumped, but she kept her voice calm. "What did she sing?" "Italian songs." But she stopped singing before she left. The pain in his small voice was devastating. "Would you like me to sing something?" Adrian nodded. Gabi began humming the same lullaby from yesterday, then added words in Spanish. Adrian listened intently, his fingers finding a harmony on the piano keys. "What does it mean?" he asked when she finished. "It means sleep, my child, sleep, my love, sleep, little piece of my heart." "Did your mama sing it to you?" "Yes, and her mama sang it to her. It's a song that travels through families." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "I don't have a mama anymore. You have a papa who loves you very much." Papa is sad all the time now. He thinks I don't see, but I do." The wisdom in his voice broke her heart. "Sometimes grown-ups need help too. Are you going to help Papa?" The question caught her off guard. "I'm going to try to help both of you." "Good," Adrian said firmly. "Papa needs someone to sing to him too." That afternoon, when Tony returned from whatever business had taken him away, he found Gabi and Adrian in the kitchen. She was teaching him to make tres leches cake while he chatted about school, his voice growing stronger with each sentence. Tony stood in the doorway, watching his son laugh for the first time in months, and felt something shift in his chest. Gabi looked up and caught his gaze, flower on her cheek and joy in her eyes. "Papa," Adrian called out, "Gabi's teaching me Mexican cooking. Did you know you can make milk into 3 different kinds?" "No, I didn't know that," Tony said, his voice rough with emotion. "Come help us," Adrian demanded. "Gabi says cooking is better with more hands." For a moment, Tony hesitated. He was a man who controlled boardrooms and commanded respect through fear. But his son was asking him to make cake with a woman who'd brought light back into their dark house. "Okay," he said, rolling up his sleeves, "but I should warn you, I've never baked anything in my life." "That's okay," Gabi said softly, their eyes meeting across the kitchen. "Everyone has to start somewhere." As Tony washed his hands, he caught sight of his reflection in the window, a powerful man learning to bake cake with his son, and a woman who was quickly becoming much more than an employee. Outside, Joey sat in the car, watching the house with professional alertness. He'd already noticed the black sedan that had driven by 3 times in the past hour. The Morozov family was watching. 3 weeks into her new position, Gabi had established a routine that felt almost like a normal family life. Carlos joined them after school, and the 2 boys had become inseparable despite their different backgrounds. Adrian was teaching Carlos piano, while Carlos taught Adrian Spanish curse words that made Gabi blush and Tony laugh. "Mijo, where did you learn that word?" Gabi asked one afternoon, catching Carlos teaching Adrian a particularly colorful phrase. "Tío Miguel," Carlos admitted sheepishly. "Your uncle has a terrible mouth," she sighed. "What does it mean?" Adrian asked innocently. "It means your papa would wash both your mouths with soap if he heard you say it," Gabi replied, making both boys giggle. Tony appeared in the doorway, his white dress shirt impeccable as always, the platinum Rolex glinting as he checked the time. "What's so funny?" "Nothing, Papa," Adrian said quickly, sharing a conspiratorial look with Carlos. "Uh-huh." Tony's eyes narrowed with amusement. "Gabi, can I speak with you privately?" In his office, Tony closed the door and turned to face her. The late afternoon light streaming through the windows highlighted the elegant tattoo on his neck, and Gabi found herself staring longer than she should. "There's something you need to know," he said, his voice serious. "We've had some unwanted attention lately." "What kind of attention?" "The Russian kind. The Morozov family has been watching the house, following your movements. They know about you and Carlos." Fear shot through her. "Are we in danger?" "Not while you're here. This house is a fortress. But I need you to be careful when you leave. Joey will drive you and Carlos home from now on." "Tony, maybe I should—" "Don't." His voice was sharp. "Don't even think about leaving. Adrian has spoken more in the past 3 weeks than he did in the 6 months before you arrived, and Carlos is thriving here. His asthma has improved since he started using the air purification system." It was true. Carlos's breathing had been better, his energy higher. The stress of their old life had been affecting him more than she'd realized. "Besides," Tony continued, his voice softening, "I don't think I could let you go now." The admission hung between them, loaded with meaning neither was ready to address directly. "Tony, I know this is complicated. I know I'm not the kind of man you probably imagined in your life. But what's happening between us?" "Nothing's happening between us," she said quickly, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" He stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine. "You hum while you work, and I find myself coming home early just to hear it. You laugh with my son, and I watch from doorways like a teenager. You make this house feel like a home for the first time in years. I work for you. You're part of our family." His hand reached up to touch her cheek, and she didn't pull away. Adrian calls you Mama Gabi when he thinks I'm not listening. Her breath caught. He does? And Carlos asked me yesterday if I was going to marry his mama so we could all live together forever. Heat flooded her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'll talk to him. What did you tell him? I told him that sometimes families come together in unexpected ways, and we should be grateful for the time we have. Smart answer. Tony's thumb traced along her cheekbone. What would you tell him if I asked you the same question? Before she could answer, Adrian's voice called from the hallway. Papa! Gabi, come quick! They rushed to the living room to find both boys pressed against the window, pointing excitedly at the street. There's a lady with a gun, Carlos announced. Tony was at the window instantly, his entire demeanor shifting to something cold and dangerous. A black Mercedes sat across the street, and through the tinted windows he could see the distinctive silhouette of Dasha Morozov. Boys, go to the safe room now, Tony commanded. But Papa, Adrian started. Now, Adrian, take Carlos and go. Gabi had never heard that tone from him before, absolute authority that brooked no argument. The boys scrambled toward the hidden panel behind the bookshelf that Tony had shown them during their first safety drill. Gabi, you too? No, she crossed her arms. If this is about me, I'm not hiding. This isn't a negotiation. You're right, it's not. She moved to stand beside him at the window. That woman is here because of me. I won't cower while you handle my problems. Tony's jaw clenched, but before he could argue, his phone rang. He answered without taking his eyes off the street. Marcelli. Antonio, came a heavily accented female voice. Such a beautiful house. Such beautiful children playing in the windows. Dasha. What do you want? A conversation, just you and me. Send the little Mexican girl away and we can discuss business like civilized people. Gabi saw Tony's hand tighten on the phone, his knuckles white. She's not going anywhere. Pity? I was hoping we could resolve this peacefully. The line went dead. Through the window, they watched Dasha step out of the Mercedes. She was tall, blonde, and moved with the fluid grace of a predator. Even from a distance, her beauty was striking and absolutely terrifying. She's coming to the door, Gabi whispered. I know. Tony pulled out his own gun, checking the chamber with practiced efficiency. Whatever happens, stay behind me. The doorbell rang, melodic and innocent. Should we call the police? Tony's laugh was bitter. The police can't help with this kind of problem. The doorbell rang again, followed by a knock that was polite but insistent. Antonio, Dasha's voice carried through the heavy door. I know you're in there. I can smell the fear. Stay here, Tony commanded, moving toward the foyer. But Gabi followed him anyway, her heart pounding. Through the security monitor, they could see Dasha standing on the front steps, her hands empty but her smile predatory. What does she want? Gabi whispered. Territory, power, the usual. Tony's finger hovered over the intercom button. But she's using you to get to me. How? Because she knows that hurting you would destroy me. The admission was raw, honest, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Tony, I love you, he said suddenly, his eyes never leaving the monitor. I know it's crazy, I know it's too fast, but I love you and I love Carlos, and I'll be damned if I let anyone hurt my family. Your family? My family, he confirmed, finally looking at her. If you'll have us. On the monitor, Dasha pulled out her phone and began typing. Seconds later, Tony's phone buzzed with a text message. What does it say? Gabi asked. Tony's face went white as he read. She has photos of Carlos walking to school. She knows which route he takes, which teacher picks him up, where you buy groceries. Oh, God. This ends now. Tony moved toward the door. Tony, don't... She wants a conversation? She'll get one. As he reached for the door handle, Gabi grabbed his arm. Please be careful. Always am, sweetheart. He opened the door to face the most dangerous woman in Chicago, while upstairs 2 little boys huddled in a safe room, and the woman he loved watched through bulletproof glass, praying that love would be enough to keep them all alive. Dasha. Tony stepped onto the front porch, closing the door behind him, but keeping his hand near his concealed weapon. "You're looking well." "As are you, Antonio." Dasha Morozov was even more striking up close. Tall, blonde, with ice-blue eyes that missed nothing. Her accent was subtle but unmistakable, and she moved with the confidence of someone who had never been denied anything she wanted. "Though you seem tense. Perhaps it's the new addition to your household? My personal life isn't your concern, isn't it?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. When the head of the Marcelli family starts playing house with a cleaning lady and her sick child, it becomes everyone's concern. Tony's jaw tightened. "Choose your next words very carefully." "Oh, I always do." Dasha pulled out her phone, swiping through photos. Gabriela Castillo, 26, works 3 jobs to support her son Carlos, who has chronic asthma. They live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, and she sends money to her mother in Mexico every month. Get to the point. The point, dear Antonio, is that you've developed a weakness, and weaknesses in our business are problematic. Inside the house, Gabi watched through the security monitor, her heart pounding. She could see the tension in Tony's shoulders, the way his hand stayed near his jacket. This woman was beautiful, poised, and absolutely deadly. "What do you want, Dasha?" "The docks. Specifically, the 3 warehouses you control on the south side. Sign them over to me, and your little family stays safe." "And if I refuse?" Dasha's smile widened. "Well, accidents happen. Children with asthma sometimes have attacks that can't be controlled. Single mothers working late shifts sometimes disappear. These things are tragic, but unavoidable." The threat was delivered with such casual elegance that it took a moment for the full impact to register. When it did, something dark and dangerous flickered across Tony's features. "You're threatening a child. I'm conducting business. The fact that you've allowed emotion to cloud your judgment isn't my problem." "Here's what's going to happen," Tony said, his voice dropping to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. "You're going to get back in your car, drive away, and never come near my family again." "Or what? Or I'll remind you why people cross the street when they see me coming." Dasha laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think you can threaten me? My family has been in this business since before your grandfather was born. We don't fear Italian boys who play dress-up." "Then you haven't been paying attention." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Both Tony and Dasha turned to see Gabi stepping onto the porch, her chin raised despite the fear in her eyes. "Gabi, get back inside," Tony commanded. "No." She moved to stand beside him, ignoring his sharp intake of breath. "If this is about me, then I should be part of the conversation." Dasha's eyes lit up with interest. "Ah, the famous Gabriella. You're prettier than your photos suggest." "Thank you," Gabi replied politely, as if they were meeting at a coffee shop instead of in the middle of a life-threatening situation. "Gabi," Tony started. "It's okay." She looked directly at Dasha. "You want to hurt my son to get to Tony. I understand that. What I don't understand is why." "Business, dear, nothing personal. It feels pretty personal when you're threatening a 7-year-old. Dasha shrugged. "Children are effective leverage. They make parents compliant." "You're right," Gabi said calmly. "They do." Tony looked at her sharply, confused by her tone. "Which is why," Gabi continued, "I'm going to make you a different offer." "Gabi, don't—" "I'll leave," she said simply. "Carlos and I will disappear tonight. You'll never see us again, and Tony will have no reason to protect us. In exchange, you leave all of us alone." The silence that followed was deafening. Tony stared at her in shock, while Dasha looked intrigued. "Interesting," Dasha mused. "Self-sacrifice. How noble." "Gabi, no," Tony said firmly. "That's not happening. It's the only solution that keeps everyone safe." "Like hell it is." Tony turned to face her fully, his dark eyes blazing. "You think I'm going to let you walk away? You think I'm going to let some Russian princess dictate who I can love?" "Tony, no." His voice carried absolute authority. "You're not leaving. Carlos isn't leaving. This is your home now. And I'll burn down half of Chicago before I let anyone take you away from me." Dasha clapped slowly. How romantic. How utterly stupid. The only stupid thing here, came a new voice, is you thinking you could threaten a Marcelli and walk away. Everyone turned to see Joey approaching from the side of the house, flanked by two other men Gabi didn't recognize. All three were armed. Joey, Tony acknowledged. Boss thought you might want backup. Dasha's composure slipped slightly. This is a private conversation. Not anymore, Joey replied. See, word travels fast in this neighborhood, and when word gets out that someone's threatening the boss's family, he shrugged. Well, people get upset. More cars were pulling up to the street, black sedans and SUVs that Gabi was learning to recognize as Tony's people. Within minutes, Dasha's single Mercedes was surrounded. You're making a mistake, Antonio, Dasha said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. The only mistake I made was letting you get this close to my family. Tony stepped forward, and even Gabi could feel the menace radiating from him. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to get in your car and leave. You're going to tell your father that the Marcelli territory is off limits, and you're never going to mention Gabi or Carlos again, and if I refuse, then you'll discover that my reputation for violence isn't exaggerated. For a long moment, the two stared at each other, a battle of wills between two people accustomed to getting their way. Finally, Dasha smiled. This isn't over. Yes, it is. She turned to leave, then paused. Enjoy your little family while you can, Antonio. In our world, happiness is always temporary. As Dasha walked back to her car, Tony kept his hand on his weapon until the Mercedes disappeared around the corner. Only then did he turn to Gabi, his expression a mixture of relief and fury. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking about protecting my son. By offering to leave? By sacrificing yourself? If that's what it took, yes. Tony stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. Don't you ever, he whispered against her hair, ever offer to leave me again. Do you understand? Tony, promise me, Gabi. Promise me you'll never try to protect me by walking away. She pulled back to look at his face, seeing the fear and desperation he was trying to hide. I promise. Good. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, pouring all his fear and relief into the contact. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Papa, Gabi? Adrian's voice came from the doorway, where both boys stood watching with wide eyes. It's okay, Tony called out. Everything's okay now. But as they went back inside, Gabi couldn't shake Dasha's final words. In their world, happiness was always temporary. She just hoped theirs would last long enough to matter. 2 days after Dasha's visit, the Marcelli household had returned to an uneasy normalcy. Security had been doubled, and Carlos was no longer allowed to walk to school alone. But life continued. The boys practiced piano together. Gabi cooked meals that filled the house with warmth, and Tony found himself coming home earlier each day just to be part of it. It was Thursday evening when everything changed. Gabi was helping Carlos with homework, while Adrian practiced a new piece when Tony's phone rang. The conversation was brief, conducted in rapid Italian, and when he hung up, his face was grim. Joey's taking you and the boys to the safe house, he announced. What's wrong? Gabi asked, immediately alert. Dasha made a move. She hit one of my warehouses, took out 3 of my men. Tony was already moving toward his office, where Gabi knew he kept additional weapons. This is war now. Then we fight together. No. He turned back to her, his expression absolute. You take the boys and you go. That's not a request. Tony, Gabi. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. I can't focus on what I need to do if I'm worried about you. Please. Before she could argue further, Joey appeared in the doorway. Boss, we need to move, now. What's happening? Adrian asked, looking between the adults with growing alarm. We're going on an adventure, Gabi said quickly, forcing brightness into her voice. Like a sleepover, but somewhere new. I don't want to go, Adrian said firmly. I want to stay with Papa. Son, Tony knelt down to Adrian's level. I need you to take care of Gabi and Carlos for me. Can you do that? But Papa, My son hadn't spoken since his mother left, Tony said softly, his eyes never leaving Adrian's face. Until this beautiful woman arrived and brought music back to our house. She saved you, Adrian. Now I need you to help me save her. The words hit Gabi like a physical blow. The title phrase, spoken with such raw emotion, made her heart clench. I'll take care of them, Papa, Adrian promised solemnly. That's my boy. As Joey hustled them toward the garage, Tony caught Gabi's hand. This isn't goodbye. You better make sure of that. I love you, Gabi, both of you boys, remember that. We love you too, she whispered, then louder. Come back to us. The safe house was a nondescript apartment building in Wicker Park, but Gabi could see the security measures everywhere. Cameras, reinforced doors, men stationed at strategic points. Joey led them to a top-floor unit that was comfortable but clearly temporary. How long do we have to stay here? Carlos asked, pressing his face against the bulletproof windows. Until Papa makes everything safe again, Adrian answered with the confidence of a child who had never doubted his father's ability to fix anything. But as the hours passed, Gabi's anxiety grew. Tony's men came and went, speaking in hushed tones about territories and retaliation, but no one would tell her what was happening. It was nearly midnight when Joey burst through the door, his face grim. We need to move again. Now. What's wrong? Gabi demanded. Dasha found this location. She's coming with a full crew. Where's Tony? Handling business. Come on, we don't have time. As they rushed down the back stairs, Gabi could hear the sound of approaching vehicles. Through a window, she glimpsed black SUVs surrounding the building. This way, Joey directed, leading them through a maze of alleys behind the building. They had almost reached Joey's car when the shots rang out. Get down! Joey shoved all three of them behind a dumpster, drawing his weapon. Where are they? Gabi whispered, pulling both boys close. Everywhere. More gunshots echoed through the alley, and Gabi could hear shouting in Russian. Her heart pounded as she realized they were trapped. Joey, she said quietly, take the boys and run. I'll distract them. Like hell. They want me, not the children. Take them and go. Before Joey could respond, a new sound filled the alley, the roar of a motorcycle engine. Tony appeared at the mouth of the alley, riding a black Ducati and firing a handgun with deadly accuracy. Get to the car, he shouted. What followed was chaos. Joey pushed them toward the vehicle while Tony provided cover, his shots precise and devastating. Gabi had never seen him like this, not the controlled businessman or the gentle father, but the dangerous man who had earned his reputation through violence. They reached the car just as Dasha herself appeared, flanked by two armed men. Going somewhere, Antonio? She called out. Tony dismounted the motorcycle, his white dress shirt torn and bloody, but his stance was steady. It's over, Dasha. Your men are dead or running. Not all of them, she smiled coldly, and I still have what I came for. You have nothing. Don't I? Dasha raised her weapon, pointing it directly at the car where Gabi and the boys waited. Choose, Antonio, your territory or your family. There's no choice to make, isn't there? Sign over the warehouses and everyone goes home safely. Refuse. And... Tony's shot was so fast Gabi barely saw him move. Dasha's weapon flew from her hand, and she stumbled backward, clutching her wrist. You shot me, she gasped, staring at the blood. I aimed for your hand, Tony replied coldly. Next time I won't be so generous. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Dasha's remaining men were already retreating, unwilling to face both Tony's crew and law enforcement. This isn't over, Dasha snarled, backing toward her escape route. Yes, it is, Tony said firmly. Tell your father that if anyone from your family comes near mine again, I'll finish what you started tonight. And Dasha, next time you threaten my son or the woman I love, I won't miss. As Dasha disappeared into the night, Tony rushed to the car. Everyone okay? We're fine, Gabi assured him, though her hands were shaking. Are you hurt? Nothing serious. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. It's over. She won't come back. How do you know? Because she knows I meant every word I said. He pulled back to look at her face. I told you I'd protect you. All of you. Papa, Adrian said softly, you came back. I promised I would. "Are we safe now?" Carlos asked. Tony looked at each of them, his son, the woman he loved, and the boy who had become like a son to him. "We're safe, we're together, and we're going home." As they drove back through the Chicago streets, Gabi realized that home wasn't the mansion in Lincoln Park or even her old apartment in Pilsen. Home was wherever the four of them were together. "Tony," she said softly, "I love you too." He squeezed her hand, his platinum Rolex catching the streetlights. "I know, sweetheart, I know." In the back seat, both boys had fallen asleep, exhausted by the night's events. Adrian's head rested on Carlos's shoulder, and Carlos's arm was wrapped protectively around his friend. "They look like brothers," Tony observed. "Maybe they will be," Gabi replied, and felt Tony's hand tighten on hers. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it felt full of possibility. Years later, the sound of children's laughter filled the Lincoln Park mansion as it never had before. Adrian, now 13, was teaching his younger siblings piano, while Carlos, 10, helped their baby sister take her first steps across the marble floor. "Careful, Sophia," Carlos warned, steadying the toddler who bore her mother's name and her father's determined spirit. Gabi watched from the kitchen doorway, her hand resting on her rounded belly, where another Marcelli was growing. The scared young woman who had once cleaned these rooms was gone, replaced by someone confident in her place as the heart of this family. "Mama Gabi," Adrian called out, the title he'd given her years ago now official. "Sophia's trying to eat the piano keys again." "She gets that from your father," Gabi laughed, moving to rescue the instrument. Tony appeared behind her, his arms circling her waist as he pressed a kiss to her neck. The white dress shirt was still his uniform, still unbuttoned at the collar, but now it was often wrinkled from children's hugs. The platinum Rolex had been joined by a simple wedding band, and the elegant tattoo on his neck had been complemented by a small addition, the initials of each of his children. "Happy?" he murmured against her ear. "Completely." Outside, Chicago hummed with life and business, but inside the Marcelli home, love had conquered all the darkness. The Don who had once ruled through fear now governed through devotion, and the maid who had brought music back to a silent house had filled it with joy that would last forever. What an incredible journey of love, healing, and family. Tony's son found his voice, and Tony found his heart, all thanks to one brave woman who refused to give up. Here at Passion and Power, we believe love can conquer even the darkest circumstances. Did this story touch your heart? Subscribe for more emotional Mafia romances and share your thoughts below.